Oh, and welcome to this video. And we will continue our journey now in the domain one with security and risk management. And today we will look at the topic of risk management maturity model uh, and also how, for example, it fits in with something called as personal security and the policies around it. Now, this two topic may sound a very odd combination, but it flows from the fact that what we have seen in the previous videos in terms of the risk measurement models that we have, in terms of what risk responses and that we give based on how the risk is quantified in terms of whether it's quantified qualitatively or quantified in terms of real mathematical number, what kind of a risk response that you have chosen, how has that response been registered in risk registers, and also how did you define your KGI, KRI, and KPIs around your risk. Now, all this also comes together in what you called as a risk management maturity model, because it could be that even with all good intentions and applying all the resources that you may have, still you are not getting the desired results in terms of mitigating your risk, which will actually points the fault line to what kind of the risk management maturity model that you are applying and where you are where your business is in that framework. So the steps that has been defined in the risk management maturity models are very simple. What you have seen in the risk management life cycle is about finding a sponsor and management, identifying the risk, analyzing the risk, plan the risk response, integrate the risk management and project management so that your business objectives and how you are achieving those business objectives runs quite closely with each other, and also developing a culture of risk management where, for instance, every employee in the organization act as a risk manager and not only a limited set of people. Our risk management model defined dominantly five stages of its maturity. For example, it starts with initial, repeatable, define, manage, and optimizing. And what you see that lower you are on the value towards the left, that you are initial that your risk management model is in the very initial stages, that's where you will see that there are more risks that needs to be tackled. And it could also mean that the amount that you may have to now apply to tackle those risks may be high. That is like wastage of resources at that point of time, at least considered as wastage of resources at that point of time. But as you grow up the ladder, for example, being repeatable, that you have a basic risk management process in place, which may be inconsistently being applied, but then it does involve senior management role, which means a course correction or a correction may be performed, which then takes you to the next level of define, that your processes are well defined, that you are following a thorough business processes which are well structured, to the level of manage and optimizing. So more you go towards the right side or upper or up the ladder, you becomes higher in productivity and the quality of your risk responses and the way you mitigate them also improves. So the continuum just falls between from the left being initial to more optimizing. There are other models which have maybe fewer than five levels, but what is important for you to understand is that at different level of risk maturity model, there are different gains and losses that it entails. So when you are on the left, it could mean you have more risk, applying more money to solve that risk, which means maybe less money for actual business growth or business objective. While once you reach what you call as the optimizing level, it could be that the risk capital that then require to manage your business will be less, and your business growth and the business objective and the resources for growth of the business objectives are much more. So That is where the measurement maturity model comes into picture. If you now take, for example, uh, personal security, where the policies and procedure have to be mature, you can actually place this in this continuum between initial to optimizing. And why it is important? Human or users, being the end user of your system or the consumer or the different stakeholders that interact with your system, they possess the highest or the largest security risk. For example, unintentionally, as a system administrator or an end user may end up downloading something malicious, which may impact the functioning of your application. So in those terms, they pose the largest risk. Therefore, it is important that your risk management model has a thorough policies and procedure when you onboard or when you hire people for doing jobs which are very niche, for example, to your business goals. How does this policies and procedure comes together? In terms of that, you should have a solid hiring practices. For example, do a proper background check, whether the person has the right credentials, whether the person what he or she is claiming to have is actually right, that no fake certificates or fake diplomas are being presented, that the person is not hiding uh, if he or she may be involved in some sort of a fraud in the past while performing their duties. There could also be cases that, in spite of having a good background check, you may end up hiring someone who is not fit for the job, and that's where employee termination practices should come into picture, setting clear guidelines on what conditions the employee can be terminated, what is the severance package, how it has to be controlled with HR, and how, for example, you should shut down the access of the person once the employment is terminated. Now, in the corporate, in the business world, it is not always that you act alone, that you do everything on your own to achieve your business objective. You will have to deal with vendors, consultant, security contractors who may coming from a different company, from a different culture, from different backgrounds, and therefore you should also have policies and procedure to make sure that they adhere to your standards of managing the risk the way you want to run your business. It could also mean that you may have to outsource some of the work or offshore some of the work to other countries which may not be geographically located close to you. For example, you can go trans Pacific, transatlantic, from Europe to Asia, from US to Europe, and things like that. And that is where it is important that how you manage your outsourcing and offshoring risk is of paramount importance. Do understand in concept of risk that offshoring or outsourcing of work only translates in giving the responsibility to perform the task to achieve the work that you have been you have been designed to do. However, the risk associated whether the work is accomplished or not, or whether the accomplished work has created some sort of a risk, always lies with the parent organization or the one who is doing the outsourcing. Therefore, it is important that in such a complex mix, you have clear guidelines for outsourcing and offshoring. Also, when people from different background, from different companies work towards achieving the goals of your organization or your business, that you have a proper awareness policies around it, that what is a good practice, what is a good behavior, what is a good conduct, and things like that. It is important that if people are falling short of your own business standards, it is important that proper training should be provided to them, and then also what is the cost of the training, who entails the cost, and things like that is normally taken care in that part of the policy. It is important that such policies are reviewed periodically and effective evaluations being run continuously, so that you know that it is not being done outdated. One of the other important aspect is that now we are hiring a lot of people who we do not interact face to face. Therefore, we do online background checks. But you should know the validity of online background check, that it is thorough, that it is not just generating false positive, which may end up, creating more risk for your business if you happen to hire the person based out of those online background checks. So these two concepts goes quite hand in hand. So please pay close attention to it. I'll stop here. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.